Welcome to our latest Cabinet Facebook Live. And just before we start with the questions, I'll introduce the Leader of the Council, Councillor Philip Jackson, to say a few words before we start.
Right, thank you very much, and welcome to everybody to this North East Lincolnshire Council Cabinet Facebook Live. Your opportunity to ask the Cabinet members questions about what we're doing across the authority. Just to remind those who are listening, the Cabinet makes most of the day-to-day decisions about what's happening across North East Lincolnshire, with some of the bigger decisions reserved to full council. So I'm just going to run round and introduce my Cabinet members. They're all here this evening. So as Michelle just said, I'm Councillor Philip Jackson. I'm the Leader of the Council. I also have portfolio holder responsibility for the economy, regeneration, devolution and skills. So I'll go around the table in clockwise direction. So next to me, Councillor Stan Shreve. He's my Deputy Leader and the portfolio holder for health, wellbeing and adult social care. Next, we've got Councillor Hayden Dawkins. He's the portfolio holder for culture, heritage and the visitor economy. Then on the other side of the table, got Councillor Henry Hudson, portfolio holder for environment and net zero. Then sat opposite me, Councillor Ron Shepherd. He's responsible for safer and stronger communities. Next to him, Councillor Steve Harness, portfolio holder for finance, resources and assets. And next to Steve, Councillor Margaret Cracknell, who has responsibility for children and education. And then last but not least, on my right, Councillor Stuart Swinburne. He has responsibility for housing, infrastructure and transport. And it's probably just worth saying that we, as a local authority, in common with most other unitary authorities, we actually spend the majority of our money on children's services and adult social care. So it's just worth bearing that in mind as the questions unfold tonight. And just a thanks to Michelle Laylor from our comms team, communications team, who is asking the questions tonight.
Thank you very much, Leader. Just a reminder to everybody, we have got some pre-prepared questions, but we are taking live questions into Facebook tonight. So if anybody wants to ask anything, please do so. Quite a lot of questions to go through. If we don't get through them all, as we usually do, we will be responding to them all in our usual way on the Facebook page. So please be mindful of that. We might not get through them all. I think Councillor Jackson led in quite nicely with his talk about council tax. It was budget full council last week for those of you who watched in live or attended. So I think we will start with questions about the council tax with Councillor Harness, although the Leader may want to say something about the budget last week before we start and then go into council tax.
Yes, thanks, Michelle. So as you rightly say, last Thursday evening was the meeting at which the full council sets the annual budget and also agrees on the council tax figure for the year ahead. There were also one or two amendments proposed to the budget, but basically, from a financial viewpoint, the council is very sound. Originally, we were considering a 5% council tax increase, and we decided to reduce that by 0.5% down to 4.5%, because we recognise that people need more of their own money in their pockets at these times when the cost of living is so high, and because, as I mentioned earlier, our finances are so sound, we're in a position where we're able to take a little bit less in council tax. It's probably just worth saying that most local authorities up and down the country are going for the 5% council tax increase, which they're allowed to take before they have a referendum. But as I say, we managed to go for a lower figure this year, which I think is positive for our residents.
Thank you very much. So the first question was actually pre-submitted from Christine Hargreaves and is for Councillor Harness, who would actually like a full breakdown of where the council tax money goes.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and I thank Christine Hargreaves for the question. I think we have to remember that council tax does not fund individual service directly. The money goes into a general fund, which then pays for the services alongside government grants and retained business rates. So council tax ultimately contributes to spending across broad service blocks, and I will just reference which ones they are. We have adults, children's services, environment and place, economy and regeneration, resources, some corporate services and public health. So the money goes into a pot, and then as we have the budget, we allocate it from that budget. Council tax is an incredibly important element of council funding. At the moment, it's about 37% of our funding, which equates to something like £80 million of income. So it's very, very important, our council tax income.
Thank you. And I don't know whether Councillor Shreve or Councillor Cracknell want to come in on this, because we've talked about adults and children's being some of the big spend areas in what we are a unitary authority. Just wondered if you wanted to say anything.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I'm Councillor Shreve, and health and adult social care is within my portfolio. It is the biggest single budget within the local authority, approaching £70 million a year, and a great deal of it is spent within adult social care, either for care packages for people in care or for keeping people at home independently with appropriate levels of support. There's also a relatively large public health grant, which funds things like the school nurses, the drug and alcohol service, the wellbeing team, great deal of variety in everything that we do. So it's a big budget, and it takes a lot of management.
Thank you, Councillor Shreve. Councillor Cracknell, I know I put you on the spot a little bit because of a bit of a question, but I thought it might be worth asking if you wanted to comment.
Yes, and as my colleague Councillor Shreve has pointed out, our two relevant budgets are hugely a big part of the council spend every year. Mainly within children's social services, the amount spent relates to children who are in our care. That's where the court has decided, not the local authority, but the courts have decided that it is in the interests of the child and their safety that they are placed in the care of the local authority. Over the years, those numbers have been quite high. One of the responsibilities of the local authority over the past sort of 2 to 3 years is to look at those numbers and say, what can we do to bring those children back into our area? Because a lot of these children are outside our area of North East Lincolnshire Council, and they are extremely expensive, as you would quite imagine. So most of the budget within children's social care relates to those children who have necessarily been brought to local authority by the courts and the relevant bodies to make sure that those children are safe. I could go on an awful lot more. It's a vast topic, but simplistically, where is it?
Thank you very much. Giving Councillor Harness a little bit of a break there, but we'll go back to you now. We've got a question about justifying council tax increases and how much are the councillors' wages going up? Is it by more than the 2.99% by any chance, or more? Councillor Harness.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michelle. We will start with the council tax element of it. As the leaders alluded to, we set a 4.5% increase last week at full council. Government had given us the opportunity to increase our spending power by 6.1%, but that was on the inclusion of the council tax increasing potentially at 5%. We chose to go 4.5%. What we have to remember about the council tax increase is that 2% of that is for adult social care, the adult social care precept. A number of years ago, government recognised there was a challenge in adult social care, demand, and also some quite complex cases to resolve. So government decided that we would fund this through council tax with a 2% precept each year. So if we remove the adult social care precept from 4.5, that leaves us 2.5% council tax increase. If we then consider that inflation has been running way above the Bank of England target of 2% in the last year, a 2.5% increase I don't think is too far away. When you consider the complexity of our budget, I don't think 2.5% is too far away. But we must remember that 2% of the increase is adult social care precept. And then I'm asked if we're going to what's the second question about?
Yes.
Salaries.
Sorry, let me repeat the question for you. There's quite a lot of aspects to this, isn't it? How much are councillors' wages going up, and is it by more than 2.99% by any chance, or more?
Yeah, I think for the question, I think the issue here is that we're not talking about wages or salary. We are talking about allowances. That's what members are paid. They're paid an allowance, not a wage or a salary. And these are not set by local councillors. There is a remuneration board that sets these figures. So we're totally independent from any choices, any decisions on our pay. The decision to increase the basic allowance is on an annual basis in line with officers' pay reward. The decision to go for this was taken back in December 2017, and there was a further review in 2022. So basically, we are independent from this. We've got nothing to do with the councillors' allowances. Simple as that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harness. We'll move on to a completely different topic now, and I'll go to Councillor Swinburne and ask him about the Cleethorpes Road bus lane. So Grant Berry is asking for an update and also come in with a comment saying, is it worth sacrificing the important Gateway Road with more boarded up shops for 300 yards of a bus lane?
Yeah, thanks very much, Michelle, and thanks very much to Mr. Berry for it. And we have had previous meetings, myself and the leader, with Mr. Berry. All I can say at the moment is that the consultation is now finished, and we will be taking a review of all those comments that's been taken and make a final decision. But I would like to point out at this time that we're very, very grateful to the businesses around there that have talked to us and made it clear about their concerns. And we will be looking at all the observations from the consultation, and we will be making an announcement in the very near future.
Thank you very much. You don't get off that lightly, though. I'm going to carry on with Councillor Swinburne, because we've had 2 or 3 comments about potholes come in. So we've had a live one come in from a Sarah Murray. What about the potholes in roads damaging people's cars? Will you pay for repairs or compensation to people whose cars are damaged? And we've then had 2 more. I'm looking through my notes. Sharon Houghton, when are we going to get all the potholes done? And there was another one, but I'll let you answer those questions and then mention who it is. I'll just look through my notes, but I'll let you answer those while I'm looking.
Yeah, thanks very much, Michelle. We must realise at the moment that we've had an awful winter with rain and the weather that's been stopping us from doing a lot of these pothole repairs. But we are taken on a basis where we assess these on a regular basis with highways officers, and we make sure that if there's anyone that is in emergency is treated as quickly as possible. So it is worth noting, Michelle, about the actual policy framework that we have on potholes, and that is to make sure that the highway is fit to work on or fit to drive on. There is a criteria that we have to meet to say whether it has been, well, at the moment we know that the highway team have been working on reports of the amount of potholes, and it has doubled in the past year from February of 2025 to February of 2026 in the amount of potholes. But as I mentioned, that is down to the actual weather, and there's already been an 180% increase in pothole repairs compared to what we had in previous years. So all I'm saying is that at the moment we are looking at our policy and we are looking at whether there's any way that we can improve it. But I don't know if anybody or any of the people there were actually listening to the cabinet or the council budget meeting last Thursday when I announced an extra £7.4 million would be provided on top of what we get from the Department for Transport for repairing. And I can say a big lump of that £3 million of that £7.4 million is going to be used on resurfacing and making sure the highway is serviceable, you know, for the vehicles to actually be on the highway. So there's a lot of work going to be taking place in the next year, and I hope that we'll be able to get on top of the problem with potholes, because I agree that it is not acceptable for drivers to be driving around the borough and having to go over all these potholes. But there's a lot of money is going to be reinvested back into highways in the next year. So I'm hoping that it will be beneficial to everybody.
Thank you. I know Councillor Jackson would like to come in. The other contributor was a Terry Smith, who mentioned the state of some of roads in Grimsby and Cleethorpes is horrendous. Some of the roads require resurfacing. What is the council's answer? So sorry, Mr. Smith, but I think that's the same one. So Councillor Jackson, if you...
Yes, I think it's just worth putting the issue of potholes in context. I mean, this isn't an excuse because, you know, potholes are unacceptable and we want to deal with them. But it is a problem that we're seeing all over the country at the moment. Anybody who drives as part of their job or is driving to other parts of the country for any reason will see that there's the beginning part of this year, there's been a large increase in the number of potholes across the country. That's because we had a very cold spell where there was ice and frost, which causes the cracks to appear in the road surface. And then we had a period of excessive rain, which we know about. Water then gets into the cracks and underneath the road and causes hydraulic breakup of the road surface. So this has been happening all over the country. And, you know, as Stuart's just said, we are doing what we can to get on top of it as quickly as possible. You know, it is something that we are certainly focusing on at the moment, because we do recognise that we do need to make sure the highway is more serviceable. And as Stuart just said, you know, there is more money to spend on the highways in the forthcoming year. And if we've got a particularly bad part of the highway, which is breaking up with a lot of potholes, there is always the option of completely resurfacing that stretch. But each bit of the road will be looked at based on its merits.
Thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Swinburne.
Yeah, just quickly come back on that, Michelle, because I would encourage people actually to still try and report anything to us, because if we don't know about it, you know, apart from the general inspections that the highways people go out and look at, but if you have got any concerns in your particular area, then please report it, and then we will make sure that officers go out straight away to assess the situation and see whether it forms into the remit of needing urgent repairs or not.
Thank you very much. We had a couple of those in, actually, Councillor Swinburne. One from Tracy Fox, who said her car was damaged down St Nicholas Drive. And another one on somebody talking about potholes on Humberston Road, which they think might be an unadopted road, but I will pass those on to you as the portfolio holder. So those two contributors, they will be passed on. Trying to prioritise some of the live questions. So I think this is probably one for Councillor Shepherd about CCTV. Can the council look at CCTV near to Tesco Footbridge? So I'm assuming that's the one in Top Town on Victoria Street. King Edward Street. Many people use it to travel to and from the 24-hour gym. So,
thank you, Michelle. Thanks for the question. That bridge is already covered by CCTV as part of our new standalone system. So it is being monitored and it is covered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is on Railway Street End. On King Edward Street End, we've got a CCTV camera covering the traffic lights, which has the capability of zooming in to the footbridge. It isn't specifically covered that end by a camera, which is part of the traffic fixed cameras on the junction.
thank you very much, Councillor Shepherd. We probably have another one for you, but it's probably to pass on, actually, just to recognise that Julianne Byrne has written in about fly tipping, saying she has complained about fly tipping since last August and nobody has done anything about it. She said she just moved here and the place is dirty around her, so we will pass that on to the relevant department. But if you want to comment.
Thank you, Michelle. It would have been ideal to have known where it was geographically, but fly tipping is something that blights the whole borough. We are taking steps in the right direction now with new cameras that are designed to be used in rural areas where fly tipping tends to take place. So we are seeing some new improvements, but if you can pass those details on to us, I'm sure that we can look at it in further detail.
So Julianne Byrne, if you want to put your details in this chat, we can take that up. Thank you very much. We'll move on to a pre-submitted question about Grimsby Library, which I'm assuming that Councillor Hayden Dawkins may want to take. Julie Locke says, please can you tell me, will it be cheaper to make all the repairs to Grimsby Central Library than to build a new library? If so, will you do all the repairs necessary to protect one piece of our town that the residents want to save? Can the residents be given all the details about the costs?
Yeah, thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Julie Locke, for the question. We don't know, to be honest, we don't know the full price of the refurbishment of the Central Library as yet, because obviously there's still surveys taking place. The main thing we had to do first was remove a lot of asbestos to give us access to the roof, to have a look at that and all that sort of thing. At the moment, the estimate is between 12 and 13.4 million. But that is a general estimate at the moment. Until we've done a fully costed survey, we're not able to say what happens next. Ideally, we'd like to keep the building, like we've already said, and we've said that numerous times. I've said that since the summer on a weekly basis, I think, really. You know, so once we've got them figures, we can then put that out to the scrutiny panels and to the rest of the council across the party, and it can be a decision that's taken by everybody. It's not going to be a decision just by me. It's important that everybody makes the decision which way we go with it, because you know, it is important. It affects everybody in the borough. It obviously, if the repairs are done to that property, then it'll be a full repair. It won't be a slap and tickle and we'll look at it again in 2 years' time, because there's been too much of that in North East Lincolnshire, and we as an administration have always said that when we do a job, let's do it proper, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, just before you say, because it might come into it, Graham Williams has come in with a live question saying, would the council consider a library and museum being placed within the Central Library? This would increase footfall and open the building to a much wider audience. So Councillor Jackson, but others may have a view on that as well.
Yes, thank you. I mean, that's a really good question, but I mean, just to put the library situation in context, I mean, we do know from looking back in the records that the current Central Library building hasn't been properly maintained probably for about 30 years. So we are now, you know, reaping the problems associated with that. I mean, I think it's probably stating the obvious here. The only money that the council has is taxpayers' money, and we've got to make sure that we spend that money sensibly. Hayden's already said that the preliminary estimates for bringing the Central Library back into use are probably around 13 or 14 million pounds. Those are the figures that we've seen, but we won't know for certain until all the asbestos is stripped out and we can do a proper structural survey of the building. Now, you know, unless we are able to get grant funding to repair that building and bring it back into use, the council will have to borrow that money, have to borrow that 13 or 14 million pounds, which means the council taxpayer has to pay it back over subsequent years in the same way as you would do if you were borrowing for a mortgage on your house. So we've got to make sure that we're spending that money sensibly, and that's why we need a proper business case, and we need it really thoroughly looked at by the whole of the council. And we've got a library select committee at the moment that's looking into the future of the library service, including the Central Library building. But you know, these are decisions that need to be made based on a proper business case and looking at the alternatives, the alternative things that we could spend that money on. So, you know, people just need to remember that this money isn't growing on trees. It's council taxpayers' money that we're spending. So we need to make sure we're spending it properly and we look at all the alternatives. Certainly, if you know, if we are able to retain the central library, and we hope we are, because as Hayden has just said, you know, we have said we would like to keep that building if the business case stacks up. It would be possible on the upper 2 floors to look at alternative uses. Maybe we can get some grant funding to help us with that. And certainly, you know, one of the options I've talked about is the possibility of using that as a library in the as a museum in the town centre, because at the moment we don't have a proper museum in North East Lincolnshire to be able to display all the artifacts that currently we've got in storage that people aren't able to see. So we do need a new and better museum in North East Lincolnshire.
Councillor Shreve.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, really. All too often we confuse the subject of the library service with the library building. I mean, just to be clear, we have a statutory responsibility to provide a full library service, and we're committed to do that, both in Grimsby, Waltham and Cleethorpes, where we've stated quite categorically that those libraries will continue. And I'd like to remind people, in their own interest, that there is a pop-up library in the town centre, and it's really important that that gets used, because if it isn't used, people will start to think, well, there isn't the demand for a library. So I would encourage all of our residents to make sure they get their library membership up to date and start borrowing books. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Yes, and just to add on, the pop-up library we have in the town centre at the moment is in Freshley Place. I know there've been quite a few comments about that. We recognise that it is only a temporary provision, and that it is not, doesn't meet the requirements of a permanent library with all the facilities that we want to offer. So I would just emphasise the library in Freshley Place is temporary, and you know, we are looking for better premises within Grimsby, and you know, that may well be a refurbished central library, but as I say, until we know all the costs and we've got the business case, we can't definitely commit to that.
Thank you very much. I was going to move on actually, but seeing as we're about exhibitions and museums in the town centre, I will take a question that was pre-submitted from Christina McGilligan. Sorry, Christina Fell, who I'm sure some of us around the table will remember, about the Time Trap Museum. It is for Councillor Harness, but I'm not sure whether Councillor Dawkins wants to come in as well. So Christina is saying, where did the admission charges go from the Time Trap? Why, when visiting museums that are free entry, is the Time Trap not free? The Time Trap is the museum in the town hall, for people who don't know.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you, Christina. Obviously, we do know quite well. Yeah, there is a charge, obviously, for the Time Trap. And it says nationally, many museums that are accredited and publicly funded offer free general admission. Charging policies do vary on this, depending on governance and arrangements, funding, structures and accreditation status. The Time Trap is not an accredited museum. It is marketed and operated as an exhibition within Grimsby Town Hall, showcasing Grimsby Town's rich history and heritage. As such, it operates under a different model to fully accredited museums, which may receive specific streams of cultural funding. The admission charge contributes directly to the relevant departmental budget of Grimsby Town Hall and Civics, and is used to support the ongoing operation of the exhibition. This includes staffing, maintenance and general running costs. Income generated helps to ensure the exhibition can remain open to the public and continue to be offered at a competitive and accessible admission rate. Without this small contribution from visitors, it would be significantly more challenging to sustain the exhibition in its current form. The one thing I'm not 100% sure about is whether the Time Trap is free on Heritage Day. Does anybody have an answer for that? Whether the Time Trap is a free admission on Heritage Day, do we know that? I seem to think it is free on the Heritage Day, which is something that's not in the question or in the answer. Thank you very much.
We'll confirm that and publicise it, but I think you are right, and it is a great exhibition actually, if anybody hasn't been. We've got a confirmation that yes, it is free on the Heritage Open Days. Councillor Dawkins.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'll just pick up on that as well. It's a great exhibition. I don't know if anyone's actually been. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. Before I became a councillor, I didn't even know it was there, so I apologise. But I've been several times. In fact, I took 2 people round only 3 months ago. I remember it well because I paid for their admission. So, but I wanted to show them what Grimsby had, and it's a great little thing under this town hall that people don't seem to know about, and I recommend it to everybody. I think it's if I'm on top of my head, I think it's £4 to get in, and I think over 65s it's even cheaper. And I think I'd recommend it particularly to over the 65s because I think they'll see some things in there they'll remember from not too many years ago. And it just helps keep it alive, and you know they're always changing little things in there, and you know without them little bits of contribution for people paying to get in, it may well disappear, and I don't want to see it disappear.
Sorry, who have we got first? Councillor Shreve and then Councillor Harness.
I'd just like to say, for those people who've been to the Jorvik Centre in York, I would say with full confidence that the Time Trap is a better exhibition. And you'll have a really good time if you go through it.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Just to confirm that the cost of entry is for an adult it's £4, over 65s it's £3, a child between 5 and 15 is £3, under 5s it's free. So that's currently the charges for the Time Trap.
Thank you very much. We have had a couple more questions about the Central Library, but I think we will answer them. We'll answer them in due course, and you will get an answer because we need to move on. We've got a lot of questions. We'll move on to chalk streams now, and I'll introduce Councillor Hudson. There has been quite a lot of questions about Grimsby West, so we'll try and round those up, but these are specifically about chalk streams, although related to the planning app. So we've got Dawn Merriweather. I would like to know why in other areas with chalk streams, the councils have put measures in place to protect them and the wildlife they support. Yet our council are pushing through a plan for 3,500 homes to be built over and around ours. And Michael Cox has asked, are you going to protect the very rare chalk stream and surrounding green belt from a housing development we don't need?
Right, thank you, Michelle. Interesting question because it's not a council project and we're certainly not pushing it through. This is a private company that is submitting an application like anybody can do. They will have to consult with people like Natural England, and there's even a chalk stream project group, and all those comments will feed in. Now, they want a positive response, the developers do, so they're not going to do anything to damage the chalk stream. We wouldn't let them. Those groups wouldn't let them. Natural England wouldn't let them. So it's not really for us to comment. I mean, we know the applications come in. We will have to see what all the responses are. Then the planning committee will make a decision as to whether it's acceptable or not. But I can assure the callers that the chalk streams will be protected. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson and then Councillor Harness.
Yes, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people who are interested in this part of the borough will know that the planning application for Grimsby West is, as it's called, is currently live, and anybody can go onto the council planning web portal and make their comments about it. And indeed, a lot of people have done, which is very positive. We want to get as many comments as possible. And as Henry said a few moments ago, ultimately it'd be a decision for the planning committee. So it's not something that I as leader can either give permission for or stop. That's not how the law works. The planning committee is the route for either giving permission or not giving permission for planning applications. And as leader of the council and as cabinet members, we can't intervene in that process. It's a quasi-judicial one. But I do know from what I've seen of the planning application that the chalk stream area is very robustly protected within that planning application, and that is a key part of the application. It's a legal requirement for sites like that to be properly protected, and there is a lot of open green space within the Grimsby West development, and the area around the chalk stream is one of those. So it's not being 3,500 houses are not being built over the chalk stream, as has just been suggested. Very much the opposite. The whole of that chalk stream area will be very well protected within the development if it goes ahead.
Councillor Harness, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thank you very much, Michelle. Yeah, just to point out that was in the question that it alluded to the fact that we had a green belt. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have green belt. In the current planning process, we do have what we call strategic gaps, which are protected areas between settlements. And in the new local plan, as it progresses, they will become what we call green wedges. But I'm sure in this planning application, you know, that the chalk stream will be protected. That's for sure. But again, it's not in our hands. You know, the process and the outcomes.
Thank you very much. I'd like to acknowledge that we have had comments on this particular topic from a Fiona Bradley and Simon Phillip online tonight. So Fiona is saying again, what about the proposed 3,500 homes on Freshney? How can you justify destroying one of the full natural area to build houses we don't need? There's plenty of space in the town area that can be built on. We'll come to that in a minute with another question. Simon Phillip has said, what are your views on the Environment Agency's recent letter stating that Freshney Valley West housing proposal will be refused on grounds of flood issues? Again, I think you've covered that. This is probably part of the planning process that will be decided in due course. But Irene Gordon has also submitted a question about planning applications in general. Why is North East Lincolnshire Council granting so many new housing applications when the population is declining and housing projects that have been started are incomplete because the builders have gone bust, obviously because people can't afford to buy? And why are they considering building on greenfields when there are brownfield sites such as Freeman Street where the council demolished tower blocks and did nothing to replace them? Sorry, it's quite a long one. This is an ideal location for social housing and starter affordable homes. I don't know whether Councillor Swinburne or Councillor Jackson want to come in on that.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. And yeah, I will actually start it off with that. I'm sure that Councillor Jackson would want to come in as well. On a couple of points, really, when we talk about the actual amount of housing that's been built, we must realise that this new Labour government have actually insisted that £1.5 million homes will be built in the term of this government. And that's a figure that is quite unbelievably unattainable. In North East Lincolnshire, we've been allocated that we should build 622 per year. And again, we believe that that's too high. But, you know, we are doing what we can with the amount of areas that we've got. And let's not forget that we've got the local plan that we're actually dealing with at the moment, which is due for submission to government by the end of 2026 for their observations. At the present time, we are still under the control of the last local plan, which was in 2018. So all those allocations that was placed there in areas for the housing is in that local plan of 2018. We are doing what we can, and I say what's happening over on Alexandra Rees Park there. We're actually building another 122 houses on the waterfront, and we are taking it seriously about what's happening with the housing allocation in North East Lincolnshire. And when you talk about part of the question there about the demolition of the flats in Freeman Street in that area, don't forget that that is not a council decision as such. Council do own the land, but it was Lincolnshire Housing Partnership that decided that they wanted to demolish those flats for other reasons as well. So we have got concerns about what's happening, but you mentioned about builders going bust that many. We're not aware of any at the moment, apart from one that is having problems, which is opposite the Tesco building in Cleethorpes at the moment. But we don't believe that there's an amount of builders going actually bust when they've started these obviously projects. So it is a thing that we're looking at, and you know, to build 1.5 million homes in the country in 5 years, we believe is just not proportionate.
Councillor Jackson.
Yes, thank you. I mean, as Stuart's just said, we have this new Labour government housing target of 622 additional new homes every year in North East Lincolnshire, which has been recognised by all parties on North East Lincolnshire Council, including the Labour members, as being an unrealistic target for North East Lincolnshire, and we did have a resolution that went through full council last year, which got all party support, where we wrote to the government and said, we do recognise that we need to be ambitious in North East Lincolnshire and build more houses, but we thought that 400 homes per year was a more realistic target for North East Lincolnshire. That letter went off to government, and we got a response back which basically dismissed the arguments we were putting forward. So unfortunately, we are stuck with this 622 homes per year target, and that is affecting the number of planning applications that we're currently getting in, because developers recognise that we've got to meet these higher targets, so that they're putting applications in at the moment. There is a danger that where we refuse those applications, if they're deemed to be reasonable applications, and the developer goes to appeal, that a government planning inspector will grant the application. And we've had a number of occasions when that's happened in the last couple of years, and then we end up paying the costs for dealing with that appeal. So we are caught in a difficult situation as a local authority. We do have, as Stuart just said, a local development plan, which was approved back in 2018, that identifies sites across the borough that are identified for housing. The Grimsby West site was one of those sites that's in the current local plan. Again, that's in effect, that's almost a quasi-judicial document. We can't just change the local plan. It was agreed by full council back in 2018, and it was approved by the planning inspectorate. And there was full public consultation on that plan before it was adopted. So, everybody had an opportunity to put their views in about the housing sites that were proposed and that went into that plan. What we need to try and stop doing is building so many homes around the villages like Waltham, Humberston and Healing, New Waltham, because we don't have the infrastructure there to be able to support a lot of extra houses. We don't have the roads to be able to deal with it. We don't have the shops. We don't have the doctor surgeries. The advantage of proposed developments like Grimsby West is that all those facilities get built into that new development. So we are getting a lot of kickback at the moment from the southern and western arc of North East Lincolnshire, where we're getting a lot of speculative applications coming in for developers for housing sites in areas where we don't really have the infrastructure to support them.
Yeah, Councillor Swinburne, I think this is relevant. So just before you come in, Jemima Edwards actually sent one in saying, along similar lines, please can you explain the NELC approval process for allocating fields around Wheelsby Woods for new housing development, in reference to the NELC local spatial strategy plan, which outlines the brownfield sites are preferred. And can you provide the ecological communication where biodiversity and protections for Wheelsby were discussed? Thank you. I think that's the Brocklesby Estates consultation started. I don't know whether that falls into all the housing. So.
Yeah, no, on that particular issue, Michelle, it is worth noting that again is a private application. It's a private business that's put in that planning application, and it's something that we've mentioned it earlier in some of the other questions, that once an application does come in, it will go before the planning committee to actually make any suggestions or recommendations relating to that. But as you said, it's from the Brocklesby estate, and so we have to take that in consideration when any application comes in. What I was going to actually I must emphasise about the local plan, and I've mentioned there that we are still under control of the existing local plan that was fully supported in 2018. And so any allocations within that local plan are still live at the moment. They're talking about Grimsby West. That was also the allocation of that site was in the 2018 local plan. And so we must adhere to that until such time that our new submission for the local plan is gone to government at the end of 2026, and they can make any recommendations coming out of that local plan, whether they want to approve it or recommend any alterations. But every planning application is taken on its merits within a private developer.
I think we have Councillor Dawkins popped his hand up just before Councillor Jackson, so we'll go in that order. Thank you.
No problem, thank you. I mean, on a personal note, I'm pretty appalled what's happening in North East Lincolnshire with the planning. You know, near me, we've got a golf course that's under threat, and anything that's grass is under threat. And that's the reason I ain't got any grass at the front of my house, because I think they'd build on it if they could. You know, there isn't anybody sat around this table that's happy with what's happening nationally on the house building. You know, 200 and something, which was the original target, was achievable, and I think it was well suited for our area. 600 and something is absolutely ridiculous, and you know, I don't want to get political, but I will. It's about when we get to the point when these people are no longer in charge, we might get down to a reasonable level and get our town back. But this moment in time, just expect loads of applications to come in, because everybody's going to flood the area now, and that's unfortunately out of our control.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I just wanted to also mention about brownfield development. I mean, clearly everybody does ideally want to build on brownfield sites. These are sites which have previously been used for something else. And we are developing a number of brownfield sites. So, for example, we've got the Alexandra Dock site in the centre of Grimsby, which obviously is the area around Sainsbury's, and at the back of the new Horizon Onside Youth Zone, that area there, which has been derelict for many years. So there's going to be about 120 new homes go on there, which is going to help to increase footfall in the town centre as well. So that's a brownfield site. And we've also got the current development on the old Western School site, again, which is being built out currently. You'll have seen that on Littlecoats Road and Cambridge Road on that area of land there. And there are a number, and there's also the old Bird's Eye site on Ladysmith Road, another brownfield site which is currently being built out. So where we can, we're ensuring that brownfield sites are used first, but of course they do tend to be more, probably hard to believe, but they do tend to be more expensive to develop than greenfield sites, because there's often a lot of remediation that needs to be done on the site before developers can move in and start to build homes on them. That makes them more expensive. And it makes it more difficult to ensure that we can get people to come in and build on them. So it's a bit of a complicated situation, but we do try and promote brownfield sites where we possibly can.
Thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Harness.
Yeah, just one further comment, Michelle. We also have to remember that we have a great number of empty homes within the authority. So it does seem bizarre, we're asked to build 622 properties a year, yet we have empty homes that quite possibly could be tackled by developers. What would be a good idea if every empty home that was brought back into use was subtracted from the 622? That would make far more sense to me, bringing properties that already exist that have got nobody in them and bring that into the calculation.
Thank you. Are we finished on that one? Yeah, I just want to acknowledge Anne Whitelow. I think Councillor Swinburne referred to this building development earlier. What's happening with the Hewitt Circus building fiasco? I think you mentioned that one, didn't you, opposite Tesco? I'm not sure if you've got an update. If not, we'll certainly get one for Anne.
Sorry, thanks, Michelle. No, we've got no further update at the moment, because that's been stocked, although the building has been stocked on there for a few months now. But the authority itself, or this administration, has not been made aware of any future development on there or any.
And we also have one from a Hayley Fleming, actually. So has the piece of land that was formerly Lindsay Lower School been sold yet? I can't recall if that was for building. If not, could it be tidied up? It looks a mess and people just throw rubbish on it. So Councillor Jackson and Councillor Harness, I think, who wants to come? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. We'll certainly take that on board and see what the condition is on that.
My understanding is that piece of land is currently being marketed for potential housing, and again that is a brownfield site, so it's just a matter of finding a developer who's interested in it and getting it sold for development. I mean, as has already been said, the council itself isn't actually building any homes. All these sites are being developed by private developers. We do end up with what I call social housing on some of these sites, where that the developer provides homes that are taken over by social landlords and then rented out. But these are all private sector developments, are not ones that are being built out by the council as such.
Thank you very much. We've got a lot of questions coming. Oh, sorry, Councillor Shepherd, I didn't see you put your hand up.
Sorry, I was hid behind Councillor Harness. I just wanted to remind people that these developments are eating into the green wedge that Councillor Harness described, is the strategic gaps that we had around our villages in and around North East Lincolnshire, and the developments that we're currently seeing, certainly in my ward in Scartho, are seriously eroding that strategic gap, that green wedge, and we will end up, if we're not careful, with just one big housing estate that stretches from Nuns Corner to Haltney Clay, and we can't do that because we just don't have the infrastructure in place. And these are developers who are developing outside of the local plan, chancing their arm, and in my opinion, just being downright greedy, and it's wrong.
Thank you. We'll change the subject now. Councillor Cracknell, you might not be able to answer the first part of the question, but I thought it was an interesting question from Edgin Mork, I think. Sorry if I pronounced the first name wrong. I'll say Mr. Mork. Can't the Cleethorpes building, council buildings, be converted to the SEND school rather than spend millions on a new one? So I'm not sure you can answer the first bit of the question, but certainly the SEND school and the reasons for it.
Yes, although in terms of the buildings, and the assets of the borough, that's not really my portfolio, but I think it's a very valid question. The Cleethorpes, former Cleethorpes Council building, it's quite an iconic building. I understand in the very early days of it being marketed, there were several organisations that looked at the building and its infrastructure to see what could be made of that building and what was best use. And to this date, I know there have been conversations. What we want, I think, as a borough, is to make sure that any proposal that comes forward is right for the area and right for the building, and it is very much in the heart of the resort of Cleethorpes as well. So it is an important asset, but it's, again, like all assets, they've got to be looked at in their totality. In terms of schools, again, there's been huge discussion over the years about the varying needs of educational provision, be that of a school where the majority of pupils perhaps have an educational healthcare plan, or indeed where we are also trying to make sure that our schools are inclusive and that we are providing the means for educative purposes in our existing schools by using perhaps partly redundant buildings and bringing those back into use within their own communities, so that families, children and their families, can access those schools in their locality. So whilst there has been a lot of work taken to date with the DFE regarding a specialist provision, as we've heard about in the press and heard about locally in by the side of Freeman Street, there's a lot more discussion still going on to make sure that over the next 2 to 3 years, we're encompassing the needs of families and children in whatever our decisions are being made.
Councillor Jackson.
Just on that subject, I mean, a couple of cabinet meetings ago, we did agree to go ahead with a joint scheme between the council and the Department for Education on a new SEND school, that Special Educational Needs and Disabilities School, on the site of what used to be the high-rise flats in Freeman Street. And I know that issue was raised in an earlier question. So part of that site, we are going to put a special school, a SEND school on there, which obviously will be specially designed to be able to ensure that we can give proper educational services to that group of children. I think with regard to the civic offices in Cleethorpes, I think it would be, as I understand it, would be very difficult to convert that building into a school just because of the existing structure of the building, and it would probably cost a lot more money to do that than it would to build a new school on the Freeman Street site. One of the big advantages of that new school on the East Marsh in Freeman Street is it will kickstart regeneration in that part of the borough as well, because we recognise we're doing a lot of regeneration in Grimsby Town Centre and Cleethorpes at the moment, but we also recognise in the longer term, medium to longer term, that we need to be regenerating the East Marsh and the Freeman Street area, and certainly the new SEND school there will be stepping in the right direction in terms of kick-starting that regeneration.
Thank you very much. We have another completely different topic now from Simon Phillip, who said, were you pleased to see the government U-turn on holding local elections this May? Do you feel proud that you had already decided to go ahead prior to the government U-turn, which I suppose does raise the question of local government reorganisation as well? So I don't know, as leader, if you wish to take that one, Councillor Jackson.
Well, yes, we as a local authority had. It wasn't a question of positively making a decision to go ahead with the elections. The option that was given to local authorities was that they could send in a request to government, justify why they should not go ahead with their elections in May of this year. We decided not to make that request to government and agreed to go ahead with the local elections in the way it had originally been planned. And of course, there's quite a number of local authorities who got permission from the government not to hold elections in May, only for that decision then to be overturned a week or so ago by government. So that's put a lot of local authorities in a difficult position. But we'd already been preparing for elections in May, so that didn't affect us. You know, as Michelle alluded to, though, in the question, we don't quite know what will be happening with local government reorganisation in our area yet, and we may find ourselves in a position in 2 or 3 years' time where we may have different local authority boundaries, and then we would have to have an all-out election for the whole of the borough. But that's still up in the air at the moment, and maybe we could talk a bit more about that later in the session if we have a question on LGR, but it is all a bit up in the air at the moment.
Thank you very much. Completely different question again. So this is Councillor Shepherd, I believe, actually, from a Lewis Elliott. Why does the council and councillors ignore illegal activity blatantly taking place from all the illegal businesses operating over the town? To the unlicensed HMOs, so it might be a housing issue as well. How many have been checked are here legitimately and who are here illegally? To see such a boom in businesses operating, yet our own long-lasting businesses failing left, right and centre due to increasing costs. Something is clearly not right and needs looking into. A lot of subjects in there, but Councillor Shepherd, I thought you may have a view on that one.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Pretty big question, actually. We try and break it down as best we can. We rely on legislation from government on what we can do regarding businesses that set up here in North East Lincolnshire. As an example, there is no requirement for a licence for a vape shop. Vape shops, we know, are often linked to other activities, but there's no legal requirement for them to have a licence. That hinders us slightly because they're popping up all over the borough, and it's being a bit of an issue. We are tackling those type of shops that sell illegal products. We're tackling them head on. I was briefed yesterday, but I don't have the figures, but I will share those figures with the question. And where we are carrying out enforcement action across the whole of the borough, and it's not now just relating to one specific street, it is across the whole of the borough in all wards. We are supported by a very extensive network of intelligence that's gathered by police, our own enforcement officers, trading standards, and that builds into a picture. And when we've got the evidence, we will raid those premises, and where we found illegal or counterfeit products, we will be prosecuted. We'll prosecute them as we can. What lets us down slightly is a little bit the judicial system, whereas we've got people that are taken to court on a Monday and reopened on a Monday afternoon. And that's something that we're trying to explore now about closure orders, whether they work or not, seizure orders of seizing goods and assets from these premises to try and stop them reopening. But it's really difficult because as we do more enforcement, so more of these shops are opening up. But I will try and get those figures. I only got them yesterday, and I didn't really look into to the statistics of them.
Yeah, I think, you know, Ron's explained the situation really well in North East Lincolnshire. But again, this is another one of these issues which is not restricted to Grimsby, Cleethorpes and Immingham. It's happening all over the country. And there was recently, when I say recently, a few weeks ago, a debate in the House of Commons about the problems associated with illegal goods being sold and the sort of shops that Ron was just talking about. So it is a national issue, and I think, you know, it would help us if we had some more robust legislation coming in from the government to help us to be able to tackle some of these problems with potentially illegal shops.
I think we have Councillor Shreve. Did you want to, oh, sorry, I thought I saw your hand up. In that case, Councillor Swinburne.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Just add another point onto that, which is a concern to this council, to this authority. When we get these illegal people, or what we assume to be illegal setups of these businesses, but we must realise that it is a government initiative, the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework, that gives legislation that these people don't need a licence or can just set up willy-nilly where they want. But it is not under the control of this council or this administration to be able to make any adjustments to that. It's something that we need to lobby government on, and as Councillor Jackson rightly said, to get the legislation changed there to make it more effective to this area and make sure that we have some control over what is happening in our borough.
Thank you very much. Another completely different question. Nikki Bamford is asking if there's any update on the Cleethorpes to London train. I'm not sure whether anybody does have an update. If not, we can find out. But Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, and so thanks for that one. And certainly this has been an ongoing issue for many years. I know that Martin Vickers, who used to be the Cleethorpes MP, is now the Brigg and Immingham MP. He's been lobbying for the reintroduction of the through train to London for many years. We lost that through service back in 1992, and we do need it back because it will certainly help local businesses now, and it will put Grimsby and Cleethorpes on the train timetable board at King's Cross Station. So it does help to promote the area, but we do need to get that service back as quickly as possible. And interestingly, I was at a meeting this afternoon of the Greater Lincolnshire Combined County Authority, the new mayoral authority in Lincoln, and the mayor was talking about her transport aims for Greater Lincolnshire, and I did raise this question at the meeting, and she did assure me that she, as mayor, would also be, as Greater Lincolnshire mayor, would also be lobbying government to try and get that service reintroduced, because of course it won't just benefit Grimsby and Cleethorpes, it will also benefit Barnetby and Market Rasen if it's coming up from Lincoln, or if it's coming over from Doncaster, it will benefit Scunthorpe as well. So it's something that will bring a lot of benefit to the whole of the region if we can get it reintroduced. I mean, I think it's ironic that we've got a nationalised we've got Network Rail, which is nationalised. We've got LNER, which is a nationalised provider, and both of them seem to be putting as many objections in the way as they possibly can to reintroducing these services. We seem to get excuse after excuse, and frankly, it's not good enough. You know, we need the government to recognise that it's something that we need in North East Lincolnshire.
Thank you very much, Councillor Swinburne.
Yeah, thanks very much, Michelle. And just because obviously transport comes under my remit with my portfolio, it is, as Councillor Jackson said, it's not acceptable in this day and age that we haven't got a direct link through, but it's not through not trying, and we actually lobby all the time. Every meeting I go to, with the railway network, or when it was with the Transport for the North and that type of thing, we actually lobbied all the time. It was supposed to have been in the timetable for 2024, 2025, and now it's still not in for 2026. So it's not acceptable, and we will still keep pressing as an administration to lobby government to make sure that our voice is heard and to get it back into recognition.
Thank you very much. There's an interesting question here from Sean Gill. Councillor Shreve, I don't know, you might want to reflect on it and answer it later, or you might want to answer it now, but I thought it was an interesting one and very different. Are there more provisions for supporting peer-to-peer volunteer-led initiatives that provide mental health support in the area and help alleviate the pressure on the professional services, awareness and support? It's quite...
Yeah, thank you for the question. I can't give you a detailed answer off the top of the head, but I can talk to you about some principles. The peer group and voluntary sector is increasingly important in supporting our communities, because whatever funds are available from central government or through local taxation, frankly, it's never enough given the rise of our ageing population and the increasing mental health needs. We've recently taken the step of becoming a marmot place, and what that means is that public health and mental health will be central to everything that we do and will be considered in every decision that we make. And I do know, because I'm part of the group and I chair the Health and Wellbeing Board, that we have many stakeholders around the table who are interested in working and developing. So the in principle answer is yes, we are interested in peer-to-peer group. It has to be suitably qualified support, but the voluntary sector is really, really good at providing this support. And I would mention maybe just one example, Friendship at Home, which is extremely good organisation, and are included, for instance, in our hospital discharge arrangements, Friendship at Home, that making sure that people who go home and require support do get it at the time. So yes, we're definitely into that, but I can't give any more detail at present.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to, we've had a couple of live questions in and one submitted about Corporation Road Bridge. So can we have Joe Lawrence saying, can we please answer the many questions asked about Corporation Bridge since the beginning of this? When will we see a full audit to see exactly how much money has been spent? And Norman Reeves is asking, we have not had any updates on Corporation Road Bridge. Are you still on track, or is the opening date going to be put back? Councillor Swinburne?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. And Corporation Road Bridge obviously has been a hot topic, hasn't it, over the last few months. But we are pleased at the moment to say that the new contractor that's in place, Tasika, are getting on with the job now, and they're doing a very, very good job. And we are on track to complete, as we said, by December of 2026. And so the progress is absolutely well done to those people who are working on there. And myself, the leader and the deputy leader, we have regular meetings with the contractors and with our officers to any issues that might arise, but we only had a meeting yesterday and there are no fresh issues to report on at the moment, and we are on track for everything to do. As far as it goes for an audit on the actual spending, that's obviously a legal requirement at the moment, and that's confidential information because of ongoing activity that may be on legal activities. So we can't highlight anything further on that, but I am very pleased to say at the moment that things are moving along pretty regularly, and we are on track to still open for December of 26.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that, once the project is complete, we do need to make sure that we learn lessons from what's happened with Corporation Road Bridge, and, we do need a full review and audit of what's gone on. But there's really no point in doing that until the project is complete. We know how much it's cost, and we have the full information about every aspect of the project. So, we don't want to hide what's going on. We want to try and learn from that and make sure that as a result of that, we improve project management in the future if we need to do that. So, we are a council that's open, and we do where we can want to make sure that we fully investigate things and learn from them.
Thank you very much. Another different subject, Councillor Harness, you might be able to answer some of these questions. If not, we will take them away. There's a few questions I'm going to try and wrap up about empty buildings, some of which are our council buildings and some aren't. There's a question about Bursa Street Primary School and whether that's been sold. There's one about Welham Galleries and the latest on that. And then there is another one about the Pleasure Island site, saying that it could be a key to tourism, but it's been empty. You're developing Fresh New Place. Could Cleethorpes have the same commitment? So there's those three sites particularly being mentioned.
Yeah, well, quite obviously, the Pleasure Island site is a private development and it's a private sale, so that's got no bearing on council business at this moment in time. Bers, I believe, is sold, and the Welham Galleries is sold, so hopefully we'll see some movement on them for sure.
Okay, we will try and get an update on those and pass them on to on the latest on those. Another one, Keza Lou has asked, do the council even know how many buildings on their portfolio are sitting empty? These could be used for much better things. Like Kerry Graham said earlier, I didn't see that question, but prime examples is the 2 previous children's homes sitting empty for 3 years. There are so many young people who could benefit from these buildings utilised as semi-independent transitional projects. Councillor Cracknell, I don't know, on the question of children's homes, we are, I believe, making an attempt to do that and have opened some. I don't know whether you wish to comment on that.
Yes, I think perhaps in the broader sphere as well. So the council and children's services have what they call a sufficiency strategy that looks at the needs of those children who are in our care already, or who maybe are on the margins of coming into care, and also looks at those children and families where care is needed. What is the type of care that is required? So is it more, are we talking about provision for children who perhaps lost their sight or hearing, or very physical cases that means it's very difficult? So in terms of children's homes, there is a continuing strategy of sufficiency. That's the sufficiency of places for children who have whatever sort of physical, mental, whatever need, and that's an ongoing picture. Now, that will not necessarily mean that children will be in a children's home or need to be in a children's home. In fact, in many ways, the best possible place for a child is with their family or extended family in a safe environment, whether included in day-to-day activities with their peer group, with their relatives, with peers across the. So I don't want us to focus just saying that what we are offering is only a children's home provision. No, it's not. That may be right for some children. It may well not be right for all children. And I think we also have to be very careful about saying empty buildings. You know, I've been into children's homes where I would be appalled now if we're ever using that premise. Appalled by the state of it. Not a building owned by the council, I might say, but rented through the council. So we've got to be very clear. We can't just have a simple one size fits all for example, children in our care. We've got to be very careful what is on offer, and it has to match what the needs of those children and families are.
I think Councillor Jackson and Councillor Shreve, I'm not sure who put their hand up first, so I'll let you fight it out.
Yeah, I was rather hoping to give Councillor Jackson and Councillor Harness a bit of a rest, because I can give you an answer on empty buildings. We have a full portfolio of our estate, obviously, and we have an active programme of sale of assets that we no longer require. I'll make the very important point that any proceeds that we receive from the sale of such assets cannot be used for the day-to-day expenditure of the authority. There are certain classifications where they can be spent. So, for instance, on transformational projects, I think we can use the funding for that. We can use the funding, in theory, to pay down debt. There are all sorts of ways we can pay it. But rest assured, there is a full portfolio of the buildings that are surplus to requirements, and there is an active marketing programme, and we've been really successful in bringing in several £1 million a year in proceeds from the sale of such assets. And I hope I've helped you out there.
You have, thank you. Yes, Stan. I mean, again, just a bit of background. You know, there's no point in the council hanging on to assets that it doesn't need, because if we've got empty buildings, it costs us money every year to keep those buildings empty. We obviously sometimes have to do work on them, or we've got to pay for security on them. And of course, they're not getting used for anything useful if they're standing empty. So if we can sell them off to individuals or organisations across the borough who can do something beneficial with them, that benefits the whole community. We're not just talking about buildings here. Sometimes we talk about pieces of land that we don't need anymore as well. So we have, as Stan's just said, we do have a strategy for looking at the assets that we don't need anymore and marketing those and selling them off. And sometimes we get accused of selling the family silver when we do this. It's not a case of that, because we do buy assets as well when we recognise that they will be beneficial for the borough. So in recent years, for example, we've purchased Freshney Place, which was controversial at the time, but I think now most people recognise that that was a good move. Connected with that, we also bought the House of Fraser building as well, which clearly wasn't part of the original Freshney Place deal, but we subsequently bought that, and it links in with Freshney Place. And we also acquired the site on Osborne Street, where we're going to be building the new transport hub in the town centre, which will enable us to bring all the buses back together in one central location, which people have been wanting for a long time. So we sell assets, but we do also buy them when we need them. So we're a very pragmatic administration in that respect.
Thank you very much. Before I go on, probably, I don't know whether Councillor Swinburne would like to comment on this one, but we've got a Mariner, Mark Lusty, saying, are the council planning to make more money by using Ross Tiger to get across Corporation Road Bridge? Quite a light-hearted one there. And just to let you know, we've had 1,400 people watching or have tuned in so far tonight, so that's very good. And a lot of, just a reminder, we won't get through all the questions, but they will all be answered. Got a couple of regeneration ones now. Hayley Fleming, being a seaside town, I'm all for regeneration of the promenade, but the Submarine Stroke Waves pub and public toilets were demolished for regeneration purposes. When will that land and those plans come to fruition? I know that Councillor Jackson and probably Councillor Dawkins will have one on that. And Carol Watty or Waity, not sure of the pronunciation there. When are we going to get regenerations of our towns? Shops that matter and will bring people in rather than drive your constituents away. So I'm guessing Councillor Jackson may have a view on that, as many of you may around the room.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thanks for those questions. There's a lot in those questions. Just first of all, on the Cleethorpes Sea Road site, which is the location of the old submarine, which has been the old submarine pub, which has been mentioned. We had to demolish that a number of years ago because we actually got a grant from the old Humber Local Enterprise Partnership before it was dissolved to pay for the demolition of the building and for the highways improvements to Sea Road, which we undertook. So we had to spend that money. I think it was £1.5 million. If we hadn't spent it and done the work a number of years ago, we would have lost the money, or we'd have had to have used council taxpayers' money to do it. So that's the reason it got demolished so early. Since then, obviously, we've had a number of issues which have delayed the redevelopment of that site. So we had COVID. I know that often that's used as an excuse, but that did put a delay on the plans. And of course, the hospitality sector completely looked again at the sort of things it wanted based on what had happened during COVID. So it was only really after COVID that we got a planning application through and we decided what we wanted to do on the site. And then we did appoint a contractor to build out on that site, who unfortunately wasn't able then to go ahead with the building. And we've had to appoint a new contractor who should be starting literally any time soon on that site. So it has been a problem site in terms of delays, but we will be building out on that site as quickly as possible. In terms of Grimsby Town Centre and the shops, we cannot just dictate which shops are going to open in Grimsby Town Centre or indeed any other part of North East Lincolnshire. They have to perceive that there's a demand. And what we're doing at the moment in the town centre with all the redevelopment and regeneration is attracting more people back into the town centre. And once shops and other businesses see there's increased demand in the town centre, that's when hopefully we'll start to attract other users back into the town centre, new shops maybe. Although of course we all know that the retail sector isn't as buoyant as it used to be. So there's no guarantee that we can necessarily bring any particular shop back into the town centre. What I will say is that we've got high occupancy rates in Freshney Place at the moment. I think we're at about 95%. We are getting the renewal of existing leases, so the shops that are currently there on the whole are staying. And when we do get vacancies, we are attracting people in to take those. So retail is always going to be important in Grimsby Town Centre, but what we're trying to do is diversify the use of the town centre, bring people in for other reasons. So that's why we're currently building a new 5-screen cinema in the town centre, which has already got a cinema operator signed up to run it, and there'll be other leisure facilities coming in. We've just seen the Horizon Onside Youth Zone open, which is bringing in a whole new group of people to the town centre. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got the new housing on Alexandra Dock, which again is bringing extra footfall into the town centre and helping to justify the continued existence of the retail sector.
Thank you very much. I must apologise to Mick Bell because he did pre-submit a question on the regeneration agenda, which the leader or maybe Councillor Dawkins would like to take because the leader's just had quite a long one. How can you find it acceptable to spend nearly £8 million on Cleethorpes Gardens? This is reference to Pier Gardens. I don't know whether the leader or Councillor Dawkins wants to take that.
Yeah, I don't mind taking that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for the question. How do we justify it? Well, I mean, it's them gardens have been there for a long time, and basically it was a garden with some concrete in. There's nothing special about Pier Gardens, to be fair. It's outlived its time, and it's time we brought it up to where we are now. And I think once it's built out, I don't think anyone will have a problem with it, and they'll be absolutely astounded at how good it's going to be. I've seen the plans. I've been involved with all sorts that's going to happen on there, and the enthusiasm from the public has been phenomenal. And I think wait and see is the answer on that one.
Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, we 3 or 4 years ago we did commission a Cleethorpes master plan, which went out to public consultation. We had over 2,500 responses to that master plan, which is very high for that type of activity. And one of the things that people identified was that they wanted to see improvements to Pier Gardens and additional activities brought into Pier Gardens. And as Hayden's just said, those gardens were originally constructed back in Victorian times by the old railway company when they brought the railway into Cleethorpes. So they are due for improvements and upgrading, which is what we're doing at the moment. The money that we're spending on that, it's government money. It's levelling up fund money that was provided by the previous Conservative government. We got £18.4 million of levelling up fund money from the Conservative government, and there are 3 main projects that we're spending that on in Cleethorpes. There's a Sea Road building that I talked about a few moments ago. There's Pier Gardens, which Hayden's just talked about, and also the refurbishment of the marketplace in Cleethorpes. So there is a lot of regeneration that's going on in Cleethorpes, just about to start or has started, and it's going to make the resort far more attractive and bring more visitors in and create more jobs and prosperity for the area.
Thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Swinburne.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. And just to add point onto that, I think it's time that, we say that this administration has utterly grasped things by the metal and decided that enough is enough with no regeneration in the borough for the last 20, 30 or more years. And I think it's important to realise that we just can't stay in a time warp. We have got to move forward and move forward with the times now. I know it's difficult to try and get people to realise that, we've got to have change if we want to progress with it and help with the economy of the area, and for Grimsby and Cleethorpes and Immingham, to make sure that we are doing the right thing for the people of this borough, to make sure that they have a future ahead of them. And I think the regeneration of the area is very, very important. And as the Councillor Jackson has already said, the transport hub, freshly placed, the leisure scheme. It's money that we've actually decided that we're prepared to take on board and make sure that it's utilised in the best possible way, and regeneration is the way forward.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harness?
Yeah, just to say that Councillor Brooks has always reminded us over the years that it's important to regenerate Grimsby, but it's also important not to forget Cleethorpes, and we won't forget Cleethorpes, that's for sure.
Nor Immingham, Councillor Swinburne. We've only got a few minutes left now, so I will recognise some of the questions we've had, and we will get back to people. Edgevind Mork is very interested in Pleasure Island, saying, can't the council purchase Pleasure Island? Cleethorpes hasn't much to offer tourists. I don't know whether that's worth answering from a point of view of the council's policies on purchasing buildings and properties, if Councillor Jackson has a view on that.
Well, unfortunately, I guess there's all sorts of buildings and sites potentially across North East Lincolnshire. In an ideal world where we had an infinite amount of money, we would like to buy them, but we as a council, we don't have no council has as much money as it would like, and we are no different to any other council in that respect. If we were to buy that Pleasure Island site in Cleethorpes, assuming it was for sale, the only way we could do that would be, unless we could get grant funding, would be for us to borrow the money, and then that has to be paid off by the council taxpayer. So that is a privately owned site. As I understand it, there is some sort of an intention and some sort of a plan in place to regenerate the site. I'm not quite sure exactly where that is at the moment within the planning system, but I think we've all seen the plans announced in public in the fairly recent past. And whilst ever the private sector is prepared to do that, to develop that site, that obviously is the best way to do it, because it's not costing us, the council or the council taxpayer, any money to bring about the redevelopment.
Thank you very much. I will recognise we've had questions, individual questions on double yellow lines and some highways questions, which we will liaise with you, Councillor Swinburne. We've had one from Sharon Jennings on Oxford Street, Grimsby Road. The surface is failing. Again, we'll look at that one. And we've had some nice ones in actually from Michelle Rees. As a new resident from Dagenham in Essex, I have found this live very informative. Lots of positives for the area. Well done, council. And we've also had Ian Svensson saying, like seeing the transparency of the council at the meetings and keeping us updated. Well done. So we are on 2 minutes to 8. So I'd like to give Councillor Jackson the final word if he wishes. And we will make sure that all these questions are answered in the next several days or so, to all those who haven't had their questions answered.
Yes, thank you for that, Michelle, and thanks to everybody who's sent in questions. And it's been a pleasure tonight to take the opportunity to try to answer them, and we will try and get responses to you where we've not been able to do that. But I think it's probably, I just really wanted to emphasise a point that I think came out particularly at the budget setting meeting last week at full council, where we're trying to change and improve North East Lincolnshire to make it a better place for our children and young people to grow up in the future. And the way to do that is to attract new business and new industry to the area, better paid jobs, which we're now succeeding in doing. But in order to do that, we need the regeneration to make the area more attractive, to bring in new people, to bring in new businesses and industry, and to make it better for the people who already live here. And that's the aim of this administration, to move North East Lincolnshire forward. And the regeneration plans that we've got and all the government grant funding we've attracted in is helping us to do that. Overall, with all that grant funding and the money that the council's put in, we're spending £250 million across the whole of North East Lincolnshire in terms of regeneration and improvements. And as I say, a lot of that is government grant money that's coming in, but there's also a contribution from the council as well. But we need to continue with those improvements, moving the area forward, making it more attractive, and bringing in the better paid jobs so everybody in the area can enjoy a high standard of living, both financially and in terms of the environment within the area.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jackson.